Well, Uncle Doug.
Uncle Mark.
I have long wondered who the first people that figured out that if you traced your hand, you could make it look like a turkey is. I've always wondered where that tradition comes from.
You know what I wish I had?
What's that?
Buckles on my shoes. Laces are for losers.
Yeah, the buckles are simpler, better. It was a better time, and I think Uncle Dan's going to prove that to us.
You know, I am going to do that. And by the way, it was the elementary school kids on the Mayflower who actually first did the turkey thing.
Right,
just so that you know.
Right. It was Mrs. Standish's third grade class.
Yeah. So those who haven't figured it out, I'm going to be telling you the harrowing tale of one group's deep bravery in the face of horrific religious oppression, and of their radical acceptance of people of very different from themselves. Just kidding. I'm gonna
We're talking about religion, Dan.
I'm going to tell you about the American Pilgrims.
Yeah.
And I'm going to first start by saying that pilgrims, as a word, is heavily quotationed in my mind. Because what the fuck? Look, I don't generally like to dip back into my Mormon roots as I prepare these things, but in the style of the horrible Mormon church talk, I'd like to start with a definition.
All right.
Yes.
Merriam-Webster's Dictionary.
Dictionary.com. Look, I've updated it for the modern era. Yeah. Dictionary.com defines pilgrim as a person who journeys, especially a long distance, to some sacred place as an act of religious devotion. I mention this only because that word in no way applies to the small group of English dickheads we're about to discuss.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it seems they stretch that term pretty far.
Yeah, there was nothing sacred.
There's no holy site
here in the Americas.
Not
that
yet.
They were going. Excuse me. Please hold.
Punch him in the chest.
Somebody take over for
Plymouth
me.
Rock landed on him.
Good Lord. I'm going to take a little sip.
Yeah, have a little sip of water.
There were sacred sites in the Americas when the Pilgrims got here.
They're
just not theirs.
Not sacred to any Christians.
None they would give a shit about.
Right. Yeah, they were happy to smash those into the ground so that they could build a hut or whatever.
Or a winter or two later try to eat them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. Okay, so a pilgrim is someone traveling to something, not away from something, which is what our people did. So I'm not going to call them that. I'm not going to call them the pilgrims. To our international listeners, that is what they are universally. These are, some of the early colonizers of this continent.
Let's call them what they were, unwanted immigrants.
Well, I'm going to call them by what they were called for a couple centuries after the fact, which was the old comers.
Oh.
Ew. The old comers?
The old comers.
Huh.
Yeah.
Rather than the newcomers.
Rather than the newcomers. I guess they were the newcomers at that time.
Right.
Then, now they're the old comers.
Okay.
I don't know. They called them the old comers. Literally until...
I've never heard that before.
The 1820s. The 1820s is when somebody discovered... one of the major accounts of the whole voyage and everything was by a guy named William Bradford, and it wasn't until the 1820s when someone noticed Daniel Webster, actually, speaking of Webster's dictionary, noticed that Bradford had called them saints and pilgrims, and so he was like, so Webster started referring to them as the Pilgrim Fathers, and the name stuck.
All right.
You'd think Webster would know how fucking words work.
Weird.
But apparently not. Anywho, I should have done the Webster's dictionary definition. I just went to the first one.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was the classic.
Yeah.
Opportunity missed. God damn it.
Yeah, for those listeners who don't know, in Mormon culture, when you give a speech, there's a very specific
when you give a talk
order.
at church.
You give a talk at church.
Yeah, and it's usually a kid who's got to do a 3-minute talk.
Yep.
And they got to bulk it out.
Yep.
So
But
Webster's dictionary.
But you open with a joke.
And,
Oh, yeah.
Then you do the definition.
Right.
Yes.
And then you read read what was written in the dictionary after that,
Right.
and then you're done.
And then, exactly.
defines faith as.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Yeah. So the old comers started out as Brownists in a little village called Scrooby.
Okay.
In central England.
These people could not have been conscious of how hilarious all of their names and things were.
Oh my God, it's delightful.
The old comers of Scrooby.
Yeah.
Become the brownest of Scrooby.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about it is they were super sex positive, and they would have had a great time with all this.
Nope. We're gonna go with nope on that one. The Brownists, for those who don't know, were a group of religious separatists who thought that the Puritans were pussies who wouldn't go all the way. We're going further than the Puritans.
Purer.
Splitters.
Just to give you a sense of where we're at. Separatists at that time were fighting the really important fight of trying to make sure that the Church of England didn't look too much like the Catholics.
Right.
That was super important to them, like literally life and death important. We're talking about differences like, no, I think that control of the church should be centralized. No, I think control of the church should be at the congregational level. Let's murder each other.
Let's kill each other. And when we're done with that, let's go kill some Native Americans.
Right. Yeah, exactly. A little quick history of religion in England in the 1500s, just so that we can sort of 15 and 1600s. Henry VIII, most of you will know this, but Henry VIII became king in 1509. At that time, England, like most of Europe, was Catholic and pretty much fine with that until Henry got married. But his wife, Catherine of Aragon, simply refused to make him a son. And he got
bitch.
He got pissy about it and decided he wanted a new wife. But Catholics, you don't get a new wife.
That's right.
So he decided, we're not Catholics no more. Fuck it. I'm making my own damned religion, and declared himself the supreme head of it.
It's good to be king.
It's good to be the king.
Yeah.
And as you know, he went on to do a lot more wives.
Yes.
After Henry died, we had about 6 years of King Edward VI, who was the son of his third wife, Jane Seymour. He had a lot of them. And then, boom, we got Mary the First, Queen Mary the First of England. Mary was the daughter of Henry and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. As you can imagine, she might not have been totally a giant fan of what her daddy did to her mommy.
Sure.
So,
hey, at least she died with her head.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there were other wives that were less fortunate on that front. So anyway, she was also raised Catholic, and she fucking wanted to switch it back. So she declared England Catholic again, and that caused a hubbub. As you can imagine, people didn't like being bounced back and forth between religions. I mean, life on the ground is tricky enough, but then when the person at the top of the food chain says, "Haha, you're all a different religion now,"
Yeah.
and then they're like, you're now back to the first religion. People were getting a little,
Which is pretty hilarious because they had all the same books.
Right.
It's all the same. Like, theologically speaking, there are some minor differences that felt super major to them.
Right.
Divorce being one of them,
Right.
and whether the Eucharist is or is not Jesus. I don't know. There's a lot of very, very small things where the theology is all the same, but we are going to argue endlessly forever.
Picture a small boy being yanked into a priest's office and then pushed back out and then yanked back in and then pushed. If the religion changes back and forth.
Right.
Don't actually picture that. Don't do what Doug said.
It's illegal to even think that.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's kind of hilarious about all this, jumping many, many centuries forward, is if you know anybody in the sea, if you know a C of E person now,
Right.
you can't imagine that they would kill anybody for any reason.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Let alone,
Right.
Yeah.
even inconvenience anyone for any reason.
Right. They would apologize just for being a different religion.
So at least we can say the C of E has mellowed somewhat.
Right.
Since 15th century England.
Right. So anyway, just getting through this again, after Queen Mary came Queen Elizabeth, who wanted to end all of this, the strife, all of the back and forth, and declared, she basically declared the country to be Church of England. She had Parliament pass the Act of Uniformity in 1558, which basically said everybody has to be C of E, and she's the boss of it, and that's final, no takesies backsies. And if you don't go to her church every week and on holidays, you will be fined. And if you out and out rebel, you could be imprisoned or killed.
All right.
That is the oppression against which we hear our pilgrims bravely were
Our
rebelling.
quote-unquote pilgrim fathers.
Right, yeah, exactly. The big beef of the Puritans and then the Brownists seems to have been that the Church of England it was not theological. It was just that in her efforts to make the church palatable to as many people, as many of her subjects as possible, Elizabeth included too much Catholic shit in her Church of England. So the purity...
Oh, she got too much chocolate in the peanut butter.
She did.
Yeah.
And the purity that the Puritans wanted, it wasn't about theological purity. It was about being pure in how they practice their religion from the Catholics.
Because they're the worst.
Because they're the yucky poo-poo ones.
Right. Yes.
So that's basically where we start, how we set our scene. So back to our little grumpy band of Brownists and Scrooby. Led by their intrepid parson, Richard Clifton, they were so incensed that they were required by law to practice one kind of C of E instead of another. They decided that they were going to set sail for the distant land of Holland.
Really?
Yeah, they ran away to Amsterdam and then later to another town called, what is it called? Leiden? Something.
Yeah.
I have it somewhere.
Good old Scrooby.
Good old new Scrooby.
Yeah.
Or Scrooby-Doo, as they called it.
The old Scroobers.
Right. The Dutch laws were a lot more lenient. Yeah, Leiden is the name of the place. The Dutch laws were a lot more lenient toward, just fucking practice however you want. They didn't give a fuck. So they were going to live there. Great, right? Solution presented. They are solved. They've got a place.
Yeah.
And then suddenly their kids started speaking Dutch or whatever, and they started wearing Dutchy things.
Oh dear, wooden shoes.
And suddenly it was vitally important to these people that they not lose their English heritage.
Yeah, your son coming home with shoes with no buckles on them was like having your son come home with a nose piercing nowadays. Right.
Or two buckles instead of one buckle.
So these people were uptight in every arena of life.
Literally, they were just the most intolerably awful people that you can imagine. They cannot get along with anybody.
Huh.
So
it's kind of amazing that didn't infect the foundation of America at all. Like that.
Weird that wouldn't
horrible, intolerant.
This xenophobic, sort of outsiders suck response.
Ooh, we dodged a real musket ball on that one, fellas.
Right? So no, they decided finally that they would set sail for a place that didn't have any real people to speak of, just them brown folk that we can all ignore or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the dirt worshippers.
The dirt worshippers. They went. So they made some arrangements with some people, some merchants.
Yeah.
Words were not working for just a second there.
Well, it's the Dutch.
It's the Dutch. I'm translating from the original.
The original Walloon.
They jumped on a ship called the Mayflower, and actually another ship. The Speedwell.
The Speedwell, which did not speed or well.
No, it sped right back. It didn't work.
Half full of water.
So they
sunk well.
Yeah, exactly. They went this 3-masted ship, the Mayflower. They aimed themselves directly at the Hudson River and landed at Cape Cod. So,
you know what? By the standards of the day, that's
pretty good.
Have you seen their guns?
Actually, by the standards of the day, that was not very good.
Okay.
That was actually pretty shitty. But they decided to stick. They found that one rock that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And called their area the Plymouth Colony. I just want look. I don't need to go through the whole. I chose them because it's sort of Thanksgiving time here in the Americas, and that's when we celebrate these people? Question mark. And I don't want to go through the whole thing with them and the Indians. There's a lot of apocrypha in there. There's a lot of all that stuff. I just wanted to point out who these people were. I wanted to introduce us to them because they weren't fleeing religious persecution in the sense of when I think of religious persecution,
it was a matter of taste.
It was just grumpiness.
Right.
And yes, people had been killed for being separatists in that way.
Right.
In large part because from Henry VIII to Queen Elizabeth, there had been so much upheaval in England that people were fighting each other over the religion.
And Elizabeth's like, I'm not fucking having this.
Right. Elizabeth just wanted peace.
Right.
And so her version of it, maybe not a great idea, was to just say everybody has to practice this exact way.
Yeah.
But they all believed the same shit.
All the same shit.
So it's not like this is, this isn't Buddhists in the Rohingya. This isn't, this isn't religious persecution. This isn't China persecuting the Uyghurs,
right,
or the Christians,
people who believe radically different things.
Right. This is just people who believe all the same shit being grumpy about how they believe it.
I mean, it's really window dressing. They're killing each other over window dressing.
Right, and eventually it leads to the big overthrow. King Charles gets his head cut off eventually. All sorts of crazy shit happens.
Yeah,
sort of surrounding all of this stuff. But I wanted to be clear that this is not this is not modern day persecution the way we talk about it. And for those of you who are listening who weren't raised in the United States, you have to understand that what we were raised with is this lionizing of this small band of 100 or so,
these noble, innocent, victims of persecution,
Christ
found
followers.
liberty here in America.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Came to America seeking religious freedom.
Right.
Really, they really came to America because they did not want their children to assimilate into a perfectly Christian culture,
Dutch culture.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they really fled.
They were fleeing wooden shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
And can you imagine how different...
They were fleeing a second language.
Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine how different our history would be if they had named Plymouth New Scrooby?
First of all, this would be we'd be living in Australia now. Everything would have wackadoo names.
That's right. We'd be Australia.
Yeah.
We'd be Australia with snow.
Instead of bison, we'd have bing dongles.
That's right. Yeah, they were just a bunch of assholes.
Yep.
Let's not pretend they were anything but a bunch of assholes.
And of course, the Thanksgiving that we celebrate is theoretically a reference to a big meal that they had with a bunch of the Native Americans here, which did happen. Mm-hmm. It was a 3-day feast and whatever, and it seemed nice. Everybody was sharing and everything, and then we can just gloss over the next 200 years of history with the natives.
Yeah, knowing that they were originally assholes really helps inform what comes next.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And also, they weren't even the first colonists from England in these United States. The Jamestown guys were there before. So it's like, why are we caring about these people? Except that there was a mass migration of Puritans thereafter who kept pouring over here once the colony had been established.
Yeah.
Because they, because frankly, England didn't want them. Right. I wouldn't either.
No doubt.
And the Dutch who kindly took them in.
Right.
They said, fuck off.
Right, yeah.
We're going to take this sinking ship and get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the story of America.
Wow.
Founded by assholes.
That should be on the crest.
Right.
America founded by assholes.
And continued
and
to
still
be such.
run by assholes.
Right.
Founded by shitbags with buckled shoes and stupid guns.
Yep.
And nothing's changed.
So when you're cooking your bird and sticking. By the way, the first Thanksgiving actually had apparently there were turkeys, but there were also seals and swans.
Yeah, seals.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I don't know.
Boy,
I feel
it could be a whole different holiday.
I feel like we're not celebrating right. Get you a seal
or order your heritage seal now. You're going quick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Go enjoy your blunderbuss or whatever, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Remember the assholes that brung us here. Let's move on.
Moving on.